speak to speak directly into your microphone so that it can be heard as it's being recorded. And with that, Rebecca, can we have a roll call?
Sure. Good evening. Thank you. Commissioner Lasky,
Here.
Commissioner Slaymaker,
Here.
Commissioner Burke,
Here.
Chair Carapiet,
Here.
Vice Chair Johnson, Commissioner Seidel,
Here.
Commissioner Hart.
Here.
And here with staff, we have Nancy Miller, Planning and Building Technician, Sammy Malakiam, Associate Planner, and Danforth, City Attorney, Rebecca Markwick, Director of Planning and Building.
Thank you. And I'd like to open the open forum. This is an opportunity for any citizen to briefly address the Planning Commission on any matter that does not appear on this agenda. On being recognized by the chair, please limit your oral statements to no more than 3 minutes. Matters that appear to warrant a more lengthy presentation or commission consideration will be agendized for further discussion at a later meeting. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak during the open forum? Seeing none. Nancy, is there anyone on Zoom? No? Okay. Item number C, reports, any agenda, oral reports from any planning commissioners or staff?
I'll give a quick report that we are having a community meeting here downstairs in the community room at the Founders Room, November 9th, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. for the housing element update. So we're hoping it'll be sort of an open forum, a free flow. There won't be a presentation. There'll be stations where people can sort of walk around and see the work that we've been doing on the housing element. Additionally, we have a special planning commission meeting scheduled November 14th for the Mallard Point project. That will be at the regular time at 6:30 p.m.
And excuse me, the November 9th, what time is that?
Sorry, that's 5:30 to about 7:30. And it's an open house, so you don't have to come right at 5:30.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar consists of items that the Planning Commission considers to be non-controversial. Unless any item is specifically removed by any member of the Planning Commission, staff, or audience, the consent calendar will be adopted by one motion. Items removed will be considered in the sequence as they appear. If any member of the audience wishes to have an item removed from, you can raise your hand or follow the remote minute procedures by raising your hand on the Zoom platform. Please indicate that you would like to remove a consent calendar item and identify the item. After removing the item, the Planning Commission will call for comments at the appropriate time. Is there any planning commissioner who wishes to remove any item from the consent calendar? Seeing none?
I don't want to remove anything. I just have a question regarding one of the items. And can I ask our attorney, how many times can you ask for an extension on a approved plan?
I believe that's set forth in the code, so Ms. Marwick may know that off the top of her head. If not, I will look it up.
I don't think there is a limit in our code, but every time an extension after the very first one is granted, they have to come back to the Planning Commission for an extension.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to remove a consent calendar item? Seeing none. Nancy, anyone on Zoom? Okay. May I have the motion for the consent calendar, items 1 and 2?
I move to adopt items 1 and 2 from the consent calendar.
A second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, we move on to public hearings. Item number 3 has been postpone to a future date. May I have a motion to postpone this item to a future planning commission meeting?
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to design review number 4, 4951 Alcatraz Avenue. Can we have a staff report, please?
Sure. Thank you, Chair Carapiet and members of the Planning Commission. For your consideration this evening is an application for design review and 2 variances to construct a 2-car parking area, retaining wall, and access stairs at 4951 Alcatraz Avenue. The property is located on a steeply sloped 5,500 square foot parcel in the R1C zoning district. The property is developed with 2 single-family homes and without on-site parking. The project proposes to construct a new 2-car parking area perpendicular to Alcatraz Avenue. The parking spaces would slope down from Alcatraz Avenue and be set atop a 6-foot 6-inch retaining wall and 6-inch curb. Each parking space would be 8 feet wide by 18 feet long and contained by a 42-inch tall guardrail around the parking area's perimeter. The project would construct a set of exterior stairs from Alcatraz Avenue down to the residence. The west elevation shows the slope of the proposed parking area and 6-foot 6-inch retaining wall and guardrail. Here, the south elevation shows the new parking area and stairs from bird's eye view. The retaining wall would be made with concrete with a stucco finish. The stairs would be flagstone with a concrete curb and a stucco finish. And the guardrail would be made of black steel posts with horizontal stainless steel cables. The project would install 7 motion censored LED path lights along the steps. And the project proposes an assortment of native and non-native plants, including snow flurry to 20 feet tall, red flowering currant to 13 feet tall, and evergreen clematis to 15 feet tall. The south elevation depicts the retaining wall and guardrail after the plantings would mature. The project requests a variance from the Belvidere Municipal Code to allow a parking platform located less than 3 feet from the improved street line of Alcatraz Avenue, and requests a second variance to allow a retaining wall to exceed 4 feet above grade within the side yard setback. As shown on this elevation, the retaining wall and curb would reach 7 feet in height from natural grade within the side yard setback. Staff suggests that the special circumstances are applicable to the lot. The lot was developed with 2 single-family homes and no parking spaces. At 5,500 square feet, the lot is substandard in size and on a steep slope, making it difficult to create 2 parking spaces under the strict application of the zoning ordinance. Staff does not find that granting of a variance would constitute a special privilege, as most properties within the vicinity contain off-street parking. Here, photographs show surrounding properties having off-street parking along the improved street line. Staff has received 6 letters in support of the project and 1 letter supportive, but with a request to have the parking area redesigned. The project is categorically exempt from CEQA. And as outlined in the staff report, staff believes the facts support the required design review findings and recommends a motion to adopt the resolutions.
Thank you, Sammy. Any questions for staff from any commissioners? That Kevin?
So Sammy, this is a follow-up to our conversation earlier today. I'm still a little, or I need clarification on whether or not 3 variances are required or whether it's just 2, because I went back and looked at the code again, and there's code 19.48.130 that establishes a 5-foot setback in this particular zone. Separately, there's a code for code 19.48.190.b, which specifies that you can't have a wall higher than 4 feet, but it says nothing about the setback. So that's a separate, I think, variance. And then third is the variance that you just referred to, 19.48.19.E1, which says that no part of the parking platform can be closer than 3 feet. So I think there's 3 that are required versus just 2, because I think the one about the 4 feet doesn't refer to any setback limitations or requirements. I mean, it's a question. It's,
So you're saying right now there's 3 motions.
well, there, right now, I think what's before us is 2 variances where I think 3 are required, I think.
And are you saying the third one's required for retaining wall in the side yard setback?
Well, so the side yard is a specific code,
Which section is that again? That you're looking at?
19.48.130. So that establishes that there's a 5-foot setback in an R1C zone. But it makes no reference to any height or anything like that. And then separately, I think we're asking for, or they're asking for a variance for something greater than 4 feet in terms of a retaining wall, but that doesn't have anything to do with a setback. They're 2 different
the-
pieces of
right.
code.
So the side yard setback, you're saying because there's a parking structure in the setback.
They're building in the setback, so I think they would need a variance to build in the setback, I believe.
The parking structure in the setback, but it's it's at grade, right? So
Well,
I'm just trying to wrap
yeah,
my,
I don't know. I mean, I
head
think that's
around,
the
yeah.
question is, I need clarification because
yeah.
you could argue that it's actually requiring fill. So is that at grade or not? I don't know.
So is it a retaining wall that is actually going in the side yard setback, or is it just the structure? So maybe the variance needs to just be reworded.
Because you're coming from the grade of the road to the parking platform, right?
Right.
So essentially, there's an at-grade driveway in the setback,
No, it's built up.
or is it built?
It's the 7
At
foot.
what
It's not at grade, it's built up. I don't
It's
know when it
built
was built
up.
up.
Can you put up that side view, please, Sammy?
Sorry for so many questions. I'm just trying to understand, yeah. And then what was the other section that you referenced in 19?
So there's 3 pieces of code. They're all 19.48. One's
Yeah.
130, 190B, and 190E1. And the code that we're not referencing or is not referenced in the variance is 130. And so my question or the clarification is are we required or are they required to get a variance for code 130?
So it exceeds 4 feet, the retaining wall in the side yard setback. Is that right? Where did the,
Well, they're building something in the setbacks. So I think you need a variance for that.
Correct.
They're building a retaining wall over 4 feet, which is
Yeah.
a separate code. I think you need a variance for that. And then third, they want parking that is 0 feet from
Right.
the street, and you need a variance for that, I believe. But-
Wouldn't the building and the structure and the setback cover the height though? A little bit redundant.
They're not, it's,
But maybe this is a better question for the architect
Architect, yeah.
to clarify. So is it actually a retaining wall that's going there, or is it just the whole structure and it acts as a retaining wall, sort of?
Hello? Yes. So my understanding of the code, and not having it and reading it in front of me, is that you're allowed to have a structure up to 4 feet in height within the side yard setback. And once you get above 4 feet in height, that requires a variance. So that is the variance that we are requesting.
That's my understanding of it too, but that's why I had a couple of questions. Is it more than 4 feet in the setback?
I think it's right up to the property line.
And but we have a variance for that, correct?
Yeah. They're sort of combined. My question is were they combined and do they need to be separate? In reading the code, there isn't a specification in terms of setback, 4 feet or otherwise, in code 190.b.
190. B, right, yeah.
It just speaks generally about steps, walks, ramps, retaining walls, and having a height limitation of 4 feet. But there's no reference to side yard setbacks. That's a different piece of code. And maybe there is another, but it's not referenced. I mean,
I
is there-
see what you're saying. This section doesn't reference side yard.
No.
I believe that it's the same structure, that there's a resolution in your packet now that would grant a variance for a retaining wall in excess of 4 feet within that 4-yard setback, 4-foot setback,
4 feet,
5 foot.
5 feet.
You're confusing me. So although there is a different code section, we're applying it to the same structure. So I think it would be valuable to add the reference to the code section into the resolution. But it's not like there's a different characteristic of the structure that is at issue here. It's simply a code section that could apply to this and does apply to the same structure.
Right, so we should reference all
Yes,
three.
I think it
or
would be
the-
useful for the, not all three in the same. I would say that there's one resolution that addresses the setback from the street.
Right,
That's fine as is. The one that describes the side yard setback, that one should include a reference to this subsection B.
yeah, that would clarify it.
So just B, not E, right? Didn't you say E?
No, so it would be, it's variance from section, it would be 190.b and 130. So it's those two pieces of code that need to be referenced. Because one's about setbacks and the other's about retaining wall height.
That was E as in elephant. and yeah.
The entire 190. 'cause they're
Yeah,
two
or
things.
for maybe being simpler, it could just be all entirely of section 19.48.190. Right, so we don't get into the subsection. So it's inclusive of all of those subsections.
Okay, so we're going to drop the letters and just do the code. Okay, that sounds great. Any other questions? Seeing none, may we please have the applicant present?
Just wondering how I access my documents here. Why does it keep doing
It is, but
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for your time tonight. My name is David Thompson, and I'm the architect for the proposed project at 4951 Alcatraz Avenue. I'm sure that many of you commissioners are aware of the history with the parking situation at this property, and hopefully can support this proposal to resolve it and provide the much-needed off-street parking for the residences located on the property. As has been discussed and presented in the staff report and my project and variance descriptions, there are really not many options available to create a parking area on this site. And we feel this proposal is the best solution for the property and the surroundings. We are aware of concerns that the property owner at 53 Alcatraz has expressed, and we believe that they can be or are mitigated with the proposed design. We would also like to mention that we have received strong support for the project from many of our neighbors. First, regarding concern of light and sound impacts. The recent approved project at 53 Alcatraz, as well as the existing residents, do not have any bedroom windows in a location that would be affected by car headlights. In the approved project, there's an exterior door with glass that leads from a shower to the patio and is angled away from the direction of the parking. There would be minimal direct light shining through this door into the upper portion of the shower for a brief period when a car was parking or leaving. In the existing residence, there is a bathroom window in a similar location as the door with similar impacts. Also, the floor level at 53 Alcatraz is approximately 5.5 feet lower than the low point of the parking area, which further mitigates the impacts from car lights and sounds. You can see this in the drawing. Here is the parking area. The bedroom is right here with a solid wall facing the parking area. Here's the door out of the shower, kind of angled away from the parking area. On the existing house, the same parking area, the bedroom with the solid wall, existing window looking away, and a bathroom with a window that will get some light, headlight. The proposal also provides for a fast-growing dense vine that will cover the guardrail cables in a soft, natural way to further block the headlights. Likewise, the solid wall in the bedroom in both existing and proposed proposals faces the parking area. This and the change in elevation mitigates much of the noise that would occur for the brief period when a car is leaving or parking. We feel a solid guardrail has a negative impact on the overall design and neighborhood context, and it's not necessary to block light and sound. This condition of parking structures with opened and closed guardrails facing, adjacent to, or near adjacent properties occurs throughout Corinthian Island, especially on the downhill side of the road. Obviously, the concern of a car going over the parking area is not to be taken lightly. We can and will design into the guardrail substantial steel bollards along with wheel stops that would prevent this from occurring. Any car parking in this area would be moving very slow to navigate accessing the parking space, which will make these safety items even more effective. Once again, Corinthian Island is full of properties that have elevated or grade level parking areas where a parking car could crash into occupied space. And many of these conditions are along properties with adjacent structures nearby, and most do not have the safety checks that we would install. It is important for the property owner to keep the oak tree that exists along the street in the proposed parking area. The proposal creates a parking spot on either side of the tree. The tree is currently surrounded by hardscape. Sorry. It's currently surrounded by hardscape with limited to no direct access to permeable grade. The proposal removes much of the impermeable grade from around the trunk of the tree, creates a planter area around the tree, and with most of the parking area being permeable pavers, allows for surface water to drain into the soil around the tree. There will be no excavation or foundation work adjacent to the tree, So it is very unlikely that any tree roots would be affected by the proposed work. In preliminary discussions with the structural engineer, it is likely the retaining walls are built as a flagpole pier and wall, which minimizes the excavation, therefore less potential impact on the tree's downhill roots. The tree will be protected during construction using common practice of 2x4s wrapped around the trunk to an appropriate height to prevent damage if it happens to get struck by shovels or construction equipment. And we will engage an arborist along with the project landscape designer to oversee proper care of the tree during and after construction. Lastly, to summarize the design, the owner's goal was to provide 2 viable parking spots, keep the tree, minimize the bulk of the structure, and tie it into the existing palette of materials. As described in the drawings and the staff report and presentation, the concrete walls are finished with stucco to match the existing site walls at the street entry stair. The guardrail is black painted steel posts and rails with stainless cables to match the entry guardrail. The new stairs will be finished with the same flagstone pavers used elsewhere. And the permeable pavers will be a warm gray to blend in with the surroundings. New landscaping is proposed as well as restoring any landscape damage during construction. All new lighting is low-level shielded downlight as required to safely navigate the stairs and pathways at night. We hope the commission can support the proposal, and I'm happy to answer any questions or address any concerns you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have any questions? Nana?
Yes. Do you know
Nana,
if,
in your microphone.
do you know if you have a street light near the entrance to the parking spaces?
I do not think we do, but Petra may know. There is one.
At the intersection, why I'm asking is that you have lighting for the plantings going down the steps, but there is no lighting for coming up to the cars in the dead of night. And I was just wondering if you could, on the inside of the triangle where you have the oak, maybe put one of these lights that you're proposing in the planting.
Sure, that's a good idea.
If
Yeah.
there isn't.
If there's no street
And
light
I
there.
forgot to look, so I thought maybe you had.
Yeah, I was thinking of driving by there on the way here, but I ran out of time just to look at that specific question.
Okay. And then also I thought, no, I'll keep mine. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
So just out of curiosity, before you landed on this option, did you explore other options? Did you look at doing a side-by-side parking solution?
Yes, we looked at doing tandem parking, trying to parallel along the street. There was proposals in front of the commission several years ago that looked at trying to move the parking uphill, and that was denied by the commission at that point, just because it was not a very elegant, bulky solution. It felt like it was on top of the houses and really not a very elegant and a reasonable cost efficient solution as well. So yeah, we studied in other options. Perhaps you could remove the tree and move it away from the property line a little bit, but with the tree to remain, I think we're kind of where we're at.
Thank you. And then the rationale for the guardrail, is that, you had mentioned there's a safety element to it. So is that the reason you've selected it, or was it also for view preservation from the street?
Yes, it was more for view preservation, as well as just minimizing the bulk of the structure from the surrounding properties, both our property, the neighbor's property, and the streets circulating up and down the street, and just seemed like a nicer way to minimize that
Okay.
bulk.
Thank you.
Alex?
Yeah, this is a little bit in the same vein as Commissioner Johnson's question. It's about the railing. And I think I heard you say that you were going to be planting vines that would grow on the railing. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, it's this vine right here, which apparently, according to our landscape, is a very fast growing, pretty dense vine, and a matter of a couple of years she felt would cover that guardrail.
Okay, well, one of the reasons I'm asking that is because the retaining wall supporting the parking platform is actually right on the property line. So for that portion with the adjacent property, I don't think you could, unless you had an agreement with them to plant vines there, perhaps that part of the railing would not have the vines on it, or have you thought
Well, I
about
think,
that?
sorry, you can train, those vines will grow laterally along there. So once they get up, it can travel some distance down that side, but it really doesn't have to go, let's see. Find another drawing here. Sorry, I'm just not used to this machine. So I don't know if you can see the drawing, but
Got it.
okay. The existing parking area and all that's there, it stops, is right about there. And I don't know, the drop off to grade at that point is like maybe 18 inches. So, a good portion of that guardrail along that side would easily be able to be screened with that railing. And then after that, it would be similar to the existing condition where you've got a guardrail there. And the owners, the project next door is also proposing a 6-foot tall fence along a portion of that that will come once you go towards Alcatraz Street. It'll raise up above the up to the guardrail at some point. I know that they don't continue it up all the way to where our guardrail ends, but that will also screen stuff as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Kevin? Lynn?
I just had a question on the space between the wheel stop and the end of the parking. How is that? What, 2 or 3 feet? How big is that? I couldn't tell from.
Well, I would say it's not completely, say, engineered yet. I think the concept is that there's going to be the wheel stop there, and need just to do, in my mind, that's a construction document sort of detail where, let's look at the types of cars that are going to be parking there and determine what the right distance away is and height that, get it as high as we can without impacting the underside of a car.
Because I was looking at that and thinking that you could put planters in both of those behind the car stops, which would also grow to give some screening to the cars, which I think might really add to the screening and the noise.
I would agree, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, if we've got to keep that dimensionally clear, 8 by 18 feet, it gets a little tough to fit that in. But it doesn't take much to get a vine to grow. I mean, you could have a little 4 to 6 inch trough across there. And since it's all permeable surface under there, I'm sure we could do something like that. And, you know, most cars are only 15 and a half feet long anyway. So I don't think that would really impact being able to park a car there.
Okay. And one more question. It's not really our purview, but the carports are sloping down somewhat. So obviously you're considering drainage with that also, correct?
Correct. There's be several things going on. One, the surface is going to be a permeable paver. So conceptually, the water is just permeating down into the ground. There will be proper drainage behind at the bottom of the retaining walls to, you know, collect any water that is becoming, you know, more than the earth can observe, and then we'll properly dispose of that, you know, on our site down the hill.
Okay, thank you.
Kevin?
Thank you. Just a couple of quick questions. The first is going back to other options that you considered. Just given that the residents of 53 have submitted a letter and proposed parallel or side-by-side parking, I think, to the other side of the tree, which theoretically, if it could work, wouldn't require a variance, potentially at least the over 4 feet in the setback variance. But can you just talk a little bit about that specific option, whether you considered that and why that was not seen as a preferred option?
Well, that's what was presented to the board a couple years ago and was denied because it felt like it was, my understanding was too bulky. It would essentially set on top of or felt like it was on top of the existing house. The walls, the retaining walls get taller because you're climbing uphill. Infrastructure is certainly more impacted. So it's got more cut and fill, off haul. You know, anything's possible, but we sort of, since it was already denied by the commission, felt like it really didn't make sense to pursue.
Great, thank you. Did you want to?
Yeah.
Okay. The other question is, you referenced the plantings that will provide screening in 2 to 3 years. What could you do, or what considerations could be given to protect the privacy of 53 right from the start?
Well, you know, Marcia's comment would be one to quickly get something there on the uphill side, the parking area side of the guardrail. That would much more quickly, because, you know, we're talking about 3.5 feet of space that would need to grow. I mean, you know, if there had to be some more solid type of guardrail put on to appease the commission, I think there's options that we could look at for that.
Thank you.
Claire, did you have something? Oh, okay. So I just have one question.
Sure.
It wasn't on your plans. What is the cut and fill? And are you keeping any of the cut on site, or is that all off hauled?
No, we'll keep. So there'll be approximately 5 piers that we'll be drilling, and all that should be soil that we can use to backfill. I don't have those numbers in front of me. I know I did pass them on to Sammy. I think there was 8 yards of cut, 10 yards of fill, and probably 3 yards of just like the old concrete steps and flagstone and material that we couldn't use to backfill, that we would have to haul off. So, I'd say the off haul is around 3 yards. The import is probably, if we can use all the spoils from the piers and the excavation, we're talking about roughly 5 yards, 5, 6 yards. Most of that would probably be gravel and sand to build up the permeable system.
Great,
Okay.
thank you. And you have no idea of the neighbor's proposed plan, what kind of cut and fill that might entail?
The neighbor's plan?
Yeah, the one where they're together on the other side of the tree, kind of the old plan?
Oh, no, I don't.
Okay,
I don't. It would be mostly more fill than cut. There'd be more cut because there'd be more piers and taller walls and stuff, but we'd be filling in a lot taller, bigger area.
okay, all right, thank you. Thank you very much. Does anyone have questions? Oh, we did the question of the applicant. Okay, so I'm going to open up the public meeting. Does anyone wish to speak? Yes, Tony.
So hello again, I'm Tony Sutherland, and as you recall, I'm the owner of 53 Alcatraz. I have a question immediately after hearing what's going on with the sloping of the carport, which I didn't know before, but has a soil engineer looked at the water flow and what's going to happen?
That'll take place when they do their building plans. So that's not something that we as planning commissioners delve into. Is your mic on?
Okay, so I submitted a letter today. Did you all have a chance to read it? Would you like me to read it again for the record?
No, I don't. No, we have the letter, so that would be in the record.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'd just like to express my concerns that the burden of the safety of the property, of our property at 53, should be placed on 49. And I'd like to suggest and support the side-by-side parking, because I think that there's ways that a good architect and an engineer could put them side by side. It brings it closer to 51, but at least it takes the burden of risk and safety away from my property. And that's the most important thing to me, is the safety. Otherwise, she needs parking, I understand that. And maybe there's another solution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak? Petra?
Yeah, I'm Petra Hansen, the owner of 4951. We have met before. This has been going on for over 2 years since I bought the property. I met Rebecca at the time when the first project was turned down. I can give you more color on that. Hank Bruce was the architect at the time and had the side-by-side, which would be hanging over the cottage. These are cottages, right, built in the 50s. It was turned down for a variety of reasons. Mostly, I think it had to do with bulk and the tree. I had before, we hired David Thompson. I had Peter Geisler, also a reputable engineer, who had done a lot of work, does work on Cliff Road right now, looked extensively at all options. The best option he came up with was the parking on the north side at close to 47. Came also to the conclusion that it would be sitting on one of my cottages and would not be as safe, would be a lot steeper. And then also importantly, my neighbor, Shala Khan, didn't want lights shining right into her kitchen window. So he then went back, Peter Geisler, and looked at the side-by-side. And by the way, Tony was aware, and Mike, we discussed all these options, and it was Mike and Tony who suggested the option that we are at now for the first parking. And I can prove it because I got a text from Tony with vines to say, look how nice it looks. we could do a parking like right along the lot line. Because my preferred option would have been to keep the parking that we have, that is right under the oak tree, had we been able to work out an easement. And that was not in the interest of the neighbors. So therefore, that parking is now under a license that will terminate in less than 2 years. And then this will be a void space because it's mostly on my property. And if we cannot have an easement, nobody will be able to use it. But therefore, the very best option, or the only one we have left, is the one that David came up, which also saves the tree. Because as you know, if we take the tree down, we could move forward a few inches and we would have 1 parking spot. And I don't want to do that, and my neighbors don't want that either. We would like to preserve this coastal oak tree. As it is, there will be other trees chopped down in the area, and which is a travesty, and we don't want to do that. And yet we need parking. So we've, all my neighbors, I have support of 7 immediate neighbors. Some are here, some are on Zoom, some couldn't come, are traveling. Austin and Ligon is right opposite in the pink house. Strong support. Same with Charla. Was a mistake in the staff report that said Charla Cohen at 47 is also concerned about the light. That was not true. That snuck in somehow in the report. She corrected it and said she's in full support. So I don't know what else to do. I'm at this point in at least $40,000 without having even started the project. And I know the previous owner, Alan and Bonnie, were at their wits' end. They've worked with Hank Bruce, who built the other big house at the end. And that was denied. This is the best option we can come up with. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is there anyone on Zoom, Nancy? No, no. Okay. All right. Thank you. I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for discussion. Commissioner Burke, you want to lead off?
Sure. I wish I knew more about the project that was denied and why it was denied, because I'd just like to understand that more fully to compare the 2 options. I do, as it relates to the specific design that's before us today, I understand, I think it's an innovative use of the space. I was at the property twice. I met with the owner. I reviewed the code. And so, you know, there are certainly things that support this direction. If I were to make the findings, I would need to do it under the following conditions. 1, I'd need to understand the safety features that the architect referenced. I don't believe those are specified in the plans. But I think, again, to the concerns of the neighbor at 53, I think that would be critically important to ensure that this can be done, and the safety of 53 and the residents there would be protected. 2, I'd want to see the privacy addressed right from the start. I don't think it would be fair to ask the resident at 53 to wait 2 to 3 years for privacy to be afforded to them, and also sound for that matter. And so I do think exploring other options for the guardrails that give that privacy and noise mitigation from the start would be important. And then obviously we would need to just reference that additional code 1948130 in the 3rd resolution, just so we're being complete.
Excuse me, I meant to
Sure.
wait till you were finished. The safety issues under the Belvedere Municipal Code are not before the design review, the Planning Commission tonight. It's not one of the factors that weigh in on the whether or not the design is approved. That's more of a building permit matter.
So I think that's something that also is in the building purview, that when the plans come in, they review it for the safety. The city engineer looks at it to make sure that it is safe and whoever else needs to look at it.
That's correct. It's not part of the criteria that are at issue tonight.
Then how do we ensure that, for instance, the concerns of 53 are factored into the building assessment?
I'm afraid that you can't do that. It's beyond your scope. But certainly the building official and the city engineer would do that.
And I,
Just to add on, we would, a soils engineer, a structural engineer, the plans are vetted through the California Building Code, which the city
Yeah,
is
no, I know,
required to
I
do.
understand that from a building perspective, but the uniqueness of this particular project in terms of parking and the reference to steel bollards that would be added to, avoid any kind of issue with parking, is that, so that we would just leave that to the purview of the building department?
Yes, sir.
And so, yeah, I'd like to hear what my other commissioners have to say, because I'm still interested in understanding, and maybe some of them could provide some context about what this other project was, or the other option that was denied.
so I might just, and others can chime in, but my memory of the project that Hank Bruce presented shined lights into the home of 47, and also shined lights everywhere. It was quite up high. It was wood, it was bulky, it was unattractive. Yeah, it was much higher. It actually was above the roof line of 51. And they actually called to cut off part of the roof in order to have the structure there. So
not
it,
viable.
yeah. Anyone else want to throw in their 2 cents?
And the railing was the same pressure treated wood that is now along the road, which is definitely one of the ugliest things on that island.
All right, well, with that additional context, thank you. Then, based on those conditions, sadly excluding the safety features, but I understand why, I could make the findings.
Thank you, Kevin. Commissioner Lasky?
I think it's one of really the primary concerns on Corinthian Island is parking. And I lived there maybe 40 years ago, so I really do understand that. I think this is really a creative solution. And the most important thing is keeping that beautiful mature oak tree, which was not done last time also. It's very tight. There's really no public parking on the streets there. And also I drove back and went on the street today, and many of the other parking spaces there that are attached to homes, some are parallel and some go perpendicular to the houses there. And it is also not a thoroughfare. I mean, there may be at the most 20 homes there, so it's not as if you have cars going by continually and lights going by, noise going by. It's a very small area with very few homes. I think even though the parking space is very near the property line, there really is no other place to put it, considering all these other limitations. There's a very limited space. I can make the findings for the variances because of that, because of the property line being so close and the limited space, the size and the location of the property. The retaining wall, if the retaining wall was made lower, the parking space would be very slanted down. So you really have to have a retaining wall of that size. And so I can make the findings for that variance also. I can make the findings for design review. I would like to have the two, as a condition, the two planters at the end of each parking space. And planting could be done that could actually be 3 or 4 feet tall, which would mitigate some of the lights and also noise. And I think it would make it even more green. And that I know that our Armandii is, and that it does grow really fast. It covers space quite rapidly. So I think it's a great solution and I can make all the findings for the project.
Commissioner Slaymaker.
Yes. I also walked the property with Petra and looked at the proposed parking space. And it's such an unusual, as we've said, such an unusual space with large parking issues all on that street and in all of the Alcatraz area. So I have to say, I think that the architect did a stellar job of fitting the two parking places in the small area and making it feel harmonious and connected to the existing house and the surrounding neighborhood. So I have no issues with that. I don't know when 53 is starting to build their house, but I would propose that possibly afterward that they, that the suggestion would be to maybe add more planting on the side where the stairs are to help soften up that area, but I can make all the findings otherwise.
Thank you. Commissioner Hart.
Yes, this is interesting, and I was here when the first proposal was in front of us, and it was, yeah, it was not acceptable for anybody there. So seeing this, I must say I'm very, very impressed by this great solution that preserves, like Commissioner Lasky says, this beautiful oak. I have a few things with the lighting for the stairs that are motion sensitive. I think on the upper part, I don't think you need 3 of them. I think only 2 would suffice. And for the next set of stairs, I don't think you need 4. I think 3 would be enough. And I would like for you to take one of them and put them at the landing in the southwest corner of the landing where the next set of steps that are not going to be changed, that landing be lit up by one of these lights, because you have, as far as I can read these plans, there are no lighting for that bottom landing. Then I have a suggestion, having read all your plants, I have to start with, I think this gorgeous cacti up in the corner next to the oak. It is very pretty, but I think such a spiky plant at the corner is gonna create a lot of ouchies when you come and go to the cars, because those are needle sharp leaves. And I think you could have something softer if you want that type of or that color. There are many, many of them in the nurseries that you could choose from. I also have to say that I have personal experiences with this clematis, the winter clematis. It is a house eater. It grows feet every day. And it is actually a little hard to contain, but it is a good one to hide or grow up anything. And it has a wonderful, wonderful white flower during the winter time that's extremely fragrant. And I think actually the number 53 house would love to sit in their hot tub and have this as a backdrop. I one question on this, on the rendering. Below the planting in front of the big wall that holds up the structure, there are 2 trees drawn in, and they are referenced to as oak trees. I remember a big pittosporum tree being planted somewhere in that vicinity. That I know I talked to the owner and said that she was worried that it wasn't looking too healthy and so on. But I think if some care and pruning is given to that pittosporum, it can be brought down and fill out and also give a sense of privacy. But below that, towards the street, the Bellevue street below, I think this property owner should be asked to plant quite a lot of California natives, bushes that are both drought tolerant and that are understoried growing, that can grow in an understoried condition, meaning that it doesn't get full sun. Most California natives prefer full sun, but they also are a lot of nice flowering, interesting color in leaves and so on, that on that whole wall facing the Griffith residence on the street below, I think it would be a very nice gesture, also as a screening of anybody on Bellevue Avenue looking up and hiding the whole massiveness of this garage. And I did think about the solid fence, but I drove by at least 3 times the last 2 days to just get the feel of the openness. And even if this green, very, very strong vine will make it into solid fence, I still think that that is softer than having a wood fence or steel fence. So I would, even if you consider putting a solid fence, I think that would be a mistake because it would be so heavy and not be kind of part of this whole setting. But with all that said, I can make the findings for the variances and also for the design review.
Thank you. Commissioner Seidel.
Thank you. I did visit the site. I didn't have an opportunity to talk to the owners, but a couple of things that I actually think work well about this proposal are the fact that it's at the lower part of the street, so that's going to minimize the bulk and mass of the platform. And I also really like the fact that the tree and landscaping splits the 2 parking spaces apart. I think from a streetscape perspective, it's really a good solution. So it's giving something back to the community too, as well as providing parking for the owners. I am sympathetic also to the neighbors at 53. I think what the situation there, as I visualize it, is raising grade at the property line and then having an active use right against the property line. So there'll be cars parking there, there'll be people getting in and out. So my thought is perhaps that side of the platform should have a more solid enclosure, and perhaps the vine and open rails work on the rest of it. I think that would actually, you know, keep generally because that wall that goes out to the street is generally perpendicular to the street, that, you know, if you looked into the carport, you'd be looking at a green rail kind of wrapping the back. So I thought I would just toss that out to the commission. I think other commissioners have suggested addressing the privacy issue too, but I think it can be done. I think those are the only comments I have at this time.
And you can make all the findings then.
Yes, I can find for either 2 or 3 variances, and I can make the
Thank you. Vice Chair Johnson, please.
Yes, thank you. So I visited the site and I went through the plans and I agree with what other commissioners have said. I think this is a very good solution. There's a very pressing and practical need for parking here, and I actually think it's doing a service to the whole neighborhood. So I really appreciate that you've kept the oak tree. As much as we value and protect views in Belvedere, I actually think in this instance, I would look at keeping a portion of the rail open, but maybe lifting the retaining wall so that at least it's covering the headlights of the car. That sort of is speaking to what you were saying about just creating a little bit more shielding and privacy on the side where it's going to have the most impact to the neighbors. So I agree, it's visually much nicer to have it open, but as a compromise to try to mitigate some of that light, I think I would look into that. You know, in terms of the safety thing, I don't think there's anything that's inconsistent with this parking space. And if you look around in Belvedere, I think this is very consistent with a lot of parking. And I think because you're getting a new structure and it will be properly engineered and built, it will actually be much safer than a lot of the other older dated structures you see around the island. So, but I think a small tweak to the guardrail along that property side could go a long way. But otherwise, I really appreciate the plan. And I also think it would be really helpful to get it done before you start your project. So at least you're getting 2 cars off the road. So I'm supportive, and I can make the findings for design review and for the variances.
So can I just ask you a question? So the curb, you just wanted on the side of 53? Were you talking about along the part that faces Bellevue?
So I think this side right here along the property line, this could be solid, but I'm also thinking here where it's kind of pointing towards the house, where it doesn't have to come all the way up, but it could come up 2 or 3 feet, just enough to cover, like I said, just to block the headlights of the car. And the rest could be the metal, you know, guardrail sitting on top of it.
Okay.
So it's kind of a blend of the two.
Great, thank you. I also reviewed the staff report, visited the site, met with the owner, and I too sat through the planning commission hearing on the first rendition. And I have to say that I think this is a very elegant solution to a parking space. I think you've done a great job. And I know that the neighbors are all very excited that you're keeping the oak tree. And so with that, I also can make all the findings for design review, and I can make the findings for the 2 variances. And what I'm hearing as far as conditions is a couple things. I'm hearing plantings, like a planter box up on the actual parking surface so that the plants can grow quicker. You can always do the ones down below and they can come up. And then I'm also hearing that on the side of 53, one commissioner has suggested a more solid fence. So let me ask my fellow commissioners if how any of you feel if that is something versus the plantings that you would support that.
I feel really good about the planting. I'm looking at this here and when the car comes in, it's not actually shining that way. So I don't see how that's going to help that much.
Okay.
I don't have that. I'm fine with that.
Okay. Anyone else have a comment? And then we also had, yes, sorry.
That's all right.
I gotcha.
Is the only question about the planters is would that affect the ability to park a car fully within the spot? I know things are very tight. Would that still ensure that the rear of the car is off the road?
Yes, unless it was very large. Most cars are 15.5, 16. Get a vine going, we only need 4 to 6 inches.
Yeah.
I think we have some compromise on the,
And I'm still a fan of providing more privacy for 53. I mean, through some sort of, immediate solution, whether it be fencing or so forth. And I do agree on the along the property line is not the issue. It's at the end of the 2 parking spots because that's what shines into, I believe, the bathroom. And then we'll just provide ambient light to those other rooms.
Kelly Adams.
Pet-
qualified, and I
Petra?
asked her,
Petra, I'm sorry.
I'm not allowed to, okay, I
Mm.
was going to answer. Okay.
Mm. That's okay. Um, uh, Okay, and then we had a suggestion for raising, I guess I would call it like a concrete curb with a railing on top of it. Am I visioning that right?
Where do, yeah,
I
I'm not
wanted
clear on
to
that.
actually ask, Ashley, where are you talking about the concrete curb? At the end of the parking?
Right.
Because if you have a planter there, then that wouldn't have any light if you have a curb there and a planter.
You wouldn't do both.
So you,
They're both meant to achieve the same thing. I just think the wall is more permanent. That's the same idea.
I see.
So I'm not hearing a consensus on that.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
So I guess we need clarity on whether the commission wants, it sounds like at the end of the parking structure where the 6-foot wall is proposed, Ashley, or Commissioner Johnson, sorry, is asking to raise the height of that wall and then have the railing on top of that. Is that correct?
Something to that effect. So have it come up just enough to cover the lights of the car. I don't know if that's 3 feet, maybe.
and that's
But then
almost the
that
full amount
conflicts
of the
with the
railing.
planter and
Can I do one of the other?
you gotta
You
choose.
can only do one or the
right.
other.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, I think having something green there would solve the problem and would, instead of looking like cement or being a big wall.
And I think the other thing too is that Miss Sutherland's going to be going under construct, I don't know when, but in the near future, I would assume, under construction for her house. So it does give time for the plantings to grow before they actually move into the new house. So I think that it seems to me that I'm hearing people prefer the green. I mean, I look at Sally Griffith's house down on Bellevue, and that's what she has in between her little railing is greenery coming in and out, and it's very attractive. And I think actually greenery deadens things more than solid wood or concrete.
And you can put, 3 or 4 feet boxwood or plantings that are already that size, not even waiting for them to grow.
So that might be an option, boxwood, something like that. And the other thing I heard from Commissioner Hart was that she also wants a little bit more landscaping and some rendition or modifications to lighting, which can all be handled in the final landscape and lighting plan. So I think that what I'm hearing is that the variance for the retaining wall to exceed 4 feet in the, from grade in the side yard setback needs to add the code section 19.48.130. Okay, and then also a condition to have a planter box around the railings. And you can decide if you want to do boxwoods or whatever as a temporary measure. And do that on your final landscaping. And I don't think I heard any other conditions.
The light suggestions that Nana.
Yeah, well,
proposed?
that's final landscape and lighting.
Okay.
Yeah. So with that, may I have a motion?
I move to adopt the resolution granting design review to construct a 2-car parking area at 4951 Alcatraz Avenue.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is this the design, the motion? Are you adding the condition of?
Well, I'll do the, okay, so do I need to redo it with the condition of the?
No, just
planter?
say you want to add the condition of a planter box
Okay,
around the
so
railing,
adding the condition of a planter box on the parking deck.
around the railings, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I move to, oh wait, do we need to do it again?
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
I move to adopt the resolution granting a variance to allow a parking area to encroach less than 3 feet from the improved street line at 4951 Alcatraz Avenue.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
I move to adopt the resolution granting a variance to allow a retaining wall to exceed 4 feet in height from grade and the side yard setback, and also including all relevant code from section 19.48.130.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations. Moving on to item number 5, 31 Cove. May we have a staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair Carapiet and members of the Planning Commission. For your consideration this evening is an application for design review and retroactive design review to remove 3 poplar trees at 31 Cove Road. On April 18th, 2023, the Planning Commission approved design review and demolition applications to construct a new single-family home at 31 Cove Road. The approval included new landscaping, including 11 podocarpus on the eastern side of an access and landscaping easement behind 31 Cove Road. On August 3rd, 2023, a stop work notice was placed at 31 Cove Road after contractors cut down 2 poplar trees within the alley that were not approved for removal. The property owner filed an application for retroactive design review to remove the 2 poplar trees and design review to remove the remaining mature poplar tree within the alley. This survey shows the location of the 2 remaining poplar tree stumps, as well as the remaining mature poplar tree within the alley behind 31 Cove Road. The applicant would plant the 11 podocarpus approved at the April 18th Planning Commission meeting in this location. Here's a photograph of the podocarpus that would be planted in the alley. On October 2nd, 2023, the city's arborist, Arbor Science, inspected the poplar tree and concluded the tree was in good health, representing a low failure risk. An access and landscape easement exists for the 12 lots adjacent to the Tiburon Boardwalk Shopping Center. The easement grants owners the right to landscape the easterly side of the easement for screening purposes. This project would be categorically exempt from CEQA. And should the commission be in a position to approve this project, staff has drafted a resolution. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff?
I have one. It's not a question. It's just that on the motion on the front page, you talk about removal of 2 trees and removal of 1, but on page 3, it says removal of 3 trees and planting of 1. So there's some typos on here. I'm sure you've already done. I just want to say that.
Oh, well. I see, yeah. It can be reworded so it's clear. Yeah, that design review, the removal of 1 tree, and then retroactive for the 2 trees. Any other questions? Can we hear from the applicant, please? Please step to the podium.
Is it on? Yes. Good evening. Thanks for everybody's time, staff and commissioners. I'm open, ready for questions. It's 1 tree we want to take down.
So can you tell me why you proceeded after you had already known that you shouldn't remove trees without permission, that you continued to do this?
I did not remove those trees. A contractor did it. He wrote a letter, dived on the sword. Staff has that letter. I had nothing to do with it.
Then why did the bill go to your son at Compass?
Pardon?
Why did the bill go to your son at Compass?
Because he was the contact. He hooked me up with the tree master guy. So and we have not paid that bill for those 2 trees they took down by mistake. So like I've said in the past, I'm not playing games. I'm trying to do tricks, trying to improve the property. And, you know, this tree is half the year looks pretty horrible. And that's why, and it doesn't fit in scale with the new trees and new landscaping. So that's why we want to take it down.
Anyone else have questions for the applicant? Claire? Oh, no. Marcia? She's got
I'll
questions.
just make one comment that it's actually nature that sometimes has deciduous trees. And the reason is because in the summer, they give screening and shade, and in the winter, they allow light. So that's one of the reasons that there are deciduous trees like this. That's all.
I wanted to ask maybe Sammy, who handled the arborist, the city's arborist. Did he look at the stumps and confirm that both of them are actually alive? They are not dead stumps?
I don't believe the arborist looked at the stumps, just the remaining healthy tree.
Please. Well, let's finish with the applicant, I think.
Great.
Any other
Thank you.
questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. Commission, Vice Chair.
So just in this instance, when you have trees that are taken out without a permit, does the city levy a fine? What is the course of action? Because I just remember this when the project was approved back in April, there were many trees that were taken out without a permit. And how do we enforce the rules when the rules seem to be brazenly ignored?
Once again, I must point out that this is not does not really relate to the criteria for the approval that's before the Planning Commission. There are code enforcement personnel who would proceed if they felt that some sort of penalty here is warranted. But it's really not the Planning Commission's role in the context of this decision.
So, and I think also our retroactive code, what we do when we do retroactive design review, does not allow us to give a fine unless the applicant has not addressed the issue within 30 days, if my memory is right.
Yes, we can start the administrative citation process. In this case, the applicant was cooperative.
So the answer is basically no.
I have a question, and I think I should have asked the owner, but I see that the trees that are being proposed to be planted in the alleyway reach 14 feet high. And I saw a lot of the other trees in that whole alleyway. They are planted in raised boxes. And I was just going to ask if these trees are planned to be planted in raised boxes, or are they going to be at ground level? Because if they are at ground level, 14 feet will nearly not cover the cyclone fence that separates the lane from the Boardwalk Shopping Center. So
the plan is to put them in a 2-foot-high planting box to give them a little more height and to keep them, it's a bit marshy back there, and to keep them from being suffocated in the water
Okay.
back there.
So you're going to be basically doing what other owners have done
Yeah, the
with
same
the
condition.
same,
But-
okay.
But if you've seen the trees, I bought really big trees because I wanted instant screening both for myself and for the neighbors. So they're big already, and they had a little problem in the summer when I was gone for a couple of weeks, but I brought them back to life, and they seem to be doing better now.
Okay. All right, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to speak to this subject? See no one? Anyone on Zoom, Nancy? Okay, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Hart, you want to lead us off on this one?
Yes, I walked that alleyway. I have looked at all the other trees. I've lived here long enough, so I know that when driving on Tiburon Boulevard, you could always see in the fall this whole wall of yellow from all these poplars. I happen to like them. I think they are a great asset of both age and perfect screening. I understand the owner's aim of having everything uniform, same plants on all sides, same height. And that definitely is a preference. I would prefer to see a tree a little taller here and tree a little taller there to break up the monotony. But it's not my backyard, it's not my alleyway. So I have to actually hold back and see what my fellow commissioners say about wanting the 3 poplars to be taken out. And I did take a look at the stumps, and at least one is really ready to come back. And the third one definitely has life in it. So if they were left alone, they would come back, because these trees don't give up easy. But I'll wait and see what my fellow commissioners say.
Thank you. Vice Chair Johnson?
Thank you. So yeah, I visited the site. I'm in agreement with Commissioner Hart. I think those poplar trees did a lot for that backyard area. I think they added a really nice sense of scale. And to have the podocarpus there, and then to have this like beautiful tall trees behind it, I think added a lot to the neighborhood, and did a lot to screen the shopping center there. So I think it's really a shame that they're no longer there. I'm very happy to hear that maybe there's still life left there, and maybe they can be brought back. But I can't make the findings. I would like to see if the trees, in fact, cannot be salvaged, at least some sort of replacement plan. So you've got that scale there, you've got that height in the back. If there's a way to plant them in between the podocarpus. But I'm very sorry to see them go. Thank you.
Commissioner Seidel?
I feel like, well, first of all, let me say I wasn't on the planning commission when the project and the landscaping were approved. But I believe that it's they're improving the property. It's a consistent plan. And I wouldn't have had a problem with removing the poplars, I don't believe. And just having a consistent tree planting there. Having said that, if it's the consensus of the commission that poplars should be interspersed along the property line, that's okay with me. But I could make the findings for design review and approval of removal of the trees.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Burke?
Thank you. I went by the property and took a look at the current conditions. I also went back and looked at the plans from April that we reviewed. And maybe this was a question that I should have asked the applicant at the time, which is probably too late to do that at this point. Is what was your intent with those 3 trees? It was always to take them down. Because it's unclear on the plans that were submitted and that we reviewed as to whether those poplars were going to remain or not. And so That's the blurry line of the alley. It's not on the property. Right. Oh, it won't be in the public record.
That's been a weird part of this whole project, that, we did the landscaping plan for our property and our property line, and then we have this weird easement in the back. And so, it's a blurry line.
So thank you. that sort of underscores what I was thinking is that to me, it's unclear. It's unclear to whether or not those poplars were intended to remain or not, because they're not specifically called out, at least as far as I can tell, in the plan that was before us that we approved. And so while I'm sad to see them go, I think at this point two are gone. I could make the findings for retroactive design review on the two that were removed by mistake, I hope, and the one that you want to remove, and provide the consistent hedging of the 11 podocarpus.
Commissioner Lasky.
I think that the alleyway with all the poplar trees is really beautiful, and it impacts not just you, but it impacts a lot of homeowners that live there. It gives screening and also some sound absorption from the shopping center. So I think the one that is still remaining should remain there. And I think it's fine to have it planted within the, you have podocarpus, I believe you're putting in. And are you, I guess my question is, I'm not really asking you because the public meeting's closed, but I assume that you're going to plant those soon so they can start growing, but I think that that one should be left. And if the one is showing any kind of growth, it's still in the ground, I would leave it. And the other one seems to be put in a pot, and it doesn't look like that can be saved. I don't know. And since you've taken two out, I didn't know if you would trade for two that were approved to be removed near your home, that are near your new home, that actually are right near the fence on 33 Cove, because they're every single tree in your property has a ribbon on it that shows it's going to be cut down. And those really do give a lot of privacy to 33 Cove. So that's just a question I have for you, whether, since you've taken those big trees out, whether you would trade and keep those trees. That's all I have for now.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Slaymaker.
Thank you. So I'm not going to go much farther on this, but I do feel like I understand why that you wanted the all the trees the same on the open property in the back. I do have to say that I think it's really sad that we've had to come back a second time to do a retroactive design approval. I think that's really being abusive to the Planning Commission. So I am forced to say I can make the findings, but I'm really not happy about it.
Okay, so I also visited the site and I was very disappointed that more trees were taken down without permission for whoever is at fault. Because I thought that when you came before us and we asked you what contractor you were going to use, you said you were the contractor and that you would sub everything out. I feel that the poplar tree that's there should remain. I think I'm of the opinion, I'm not in a majority here, but I'm in the opinion that the stump that is showing quite a bit of growth right now should remain. And if that stump further down the lane, which has a little bit of growth, but it's cut down much further, should be replaced with a poplar to reestablish what was taken away. But I don't think that I have a majority in that idea. I do have, Nana, you wanted to wait to give your final opinion?
Yes.
Please.
What I hear, which kind of makes me give my final findings is that one tree is better than none. Two would be even better. So with that, I guess I cannot make the findings to retroactively or design review approve cutting of one and removing the stump.
I'm counting on my toes and fingers. So you cannot find it, but could you find design review if the one popular remained, the one that is growing remain and continue to grow, and then the one that's maybe to see if it will continue to grow, and if it doesn't, to replace it? I don't know if we even have that many people.
I could make those findings.
Any, Marcia?
Will you go
Yes.
then?
Mhm.
Claire?
Sticking with my position.
Sticky guy. Alex? Okay, all right, so may I have a motion to, I guess, deny design review for one tree and retroactive design review for the two cut trees, stumps?
It might be easier if we go step by step.
Okay,
The tree, I gather that the tree that is still standing and was not cut,
correct.
Planning Commission, at least a majority of the Planning Commission would like to see that tree remain.
Right.
So the Planning Commission is inclined to deny design review for removal of that tree.
Right.
That leaves us with the two stumps. It appears to me that, and forgive me, I lost count as to, I mean, there's one stump that shows more growth than most. My impression is that at least a significant number of commissioners would like that stump to remain. Is that accurate?
I believe I have the count for that to be true.
Well, I think it's the stumps, if they're showing signs of life and can thrive, and if not, then replace them with
Yeah,
new poplars.
New poplars.
New poplars.
Okay, so this is the first, I believe, that I've heard of a suggestion that that the applicant be required to plant new poplars. Well, that would be a code enforcement matter then. As for and I would have to research that frankly, to see if that's a remedy that's
So
available.
should we continue this while you research?
Perhaps. Do you have?
Is the majority vote to
Okay,
review the two stumps to see if they're viable, and if they aren't, to plant poplars? Is that what the majority of the commission wants? I don't have a count on that.
okay, let's do a trial motion that for the two stumps, that if they're viable, that they remain and grow. And I think one for sure is, but
Well, can I just,
arborist.
who determines if they're viable? Does that require an
have an
arborist report?
arborist,
Okay,
mhm.
thank you.
because we're not experts.
Right.
You just see new growth and you think, oh, it's still live.
So I
Um,
think the question is, would you want that arborist report to come back to the Planning Commission for a decision on the
Stumps.
retroactive approval for removal of those trees essentially?
Yes, I think that would be the proper format.
Okay, so that would be the motion then, is to
Is to
deny,
continue- Deny.
deny the application insofar as it pertains to the current standing tree, and to continue the application for the other two items, or you could just keep it all together. That would also be an option. But getting an arborist report, I think, would help inform
Right.
the Planning
It's
Commission's
kind of like our
decision.
eucalyptus. Okay. So can I have a motion to deny the design review over the removal of one popular at 31 Cove?
Is it a motion to deny, or just reading it as is and then voting, right?
You can either bring the entire matter back, should continue to consider in connection with the arborist report, or you can tonight have a motion to deny the requested approval as to that tree and continue the applications for the other two trees for retroactive approval until you can consider an arborist report.
Perhaps you might want to consider continuing the whole application, given what we've seen.
Okay,
tonight.
so can I have a motion to continue this till we get a arborist report to a future meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All against?
Opposed.
Oh, yeah, so it was 6-1.
Hold on to this. I might need it again.
Point of clarification, Mr. Seidel, did you vote yes to the motion?
I did.
Okay.
I had a frog in my throat.
So I think that ends our agenda for this evening. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
I'd like to see city council.